and welcome to another episode of Living the WIT Life with Walking in Truth Ministries. I'm Matt Russell, and I have with me here today the two amazing guys that I get to have the privilege of calling friends as well as co-leaders with Walking in Truth Ministries. Jared Walkenfoos. Jared, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Now that they got the sound of your voice down, now we get to go to the genius Troy Foster. Say hello.
Howdy.
AKA the Bald Einstein.
The Bald Einstein.
That's right.
And we're excited once again, as we are every week, to get the opportunity to be able to have a conversation with you. One of the things that I'd like to say is, I know we typically say this at the end of our podcast, but I want to kind of start off with this. We love hearing back from you guys, and we've had quite a few people who've reached out to us. They've commented, they've given us little reviews, but they've also been able to ask for specific topics or questions that they have, and we've interacted with them. So I would love for you to do that. So if you would, you can actually respond. If you're using the Anchor app or on anchor.fm to listen to us, you can actually send back a audible remark. You can send that back to us and we'll hear it. But if not, you can always comment back on any of the other platforms, or you can email us at witministries.tx@gmail.com and just drop a line, say hello, or just give us anything that you want. We'll interact with you. But we really love to hear if you have any questions or topics that you'd love for us to talk about. We're here for you. We're not doing this for us, although we do actually enjoy each other's company and yes, having conversation. We don't record it for us. We sometimes we record it for evidence that we actually said something semi-smart.
Yes,
that's just more my side. But anyways, there you go. Welcome again. Please reach out and drop us a line, and we'll go ahead and get started with today's episode.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're going to talk about something that's pretty important. We're going to talk about really having something that has to do with our own confidence, the way that we view ourselves, the way that I can't even think right now of words. Jared, help me.
You got me curious. I want to know. What is it we're going to talk about?
Okay, then he doesn't know either. So what we're going to talk about, I'm just going to start with this first question.
Well, hold on. You know, you mentioned this. You mentioned that they could reach out to us and they could give us some comments, suggestions, tips. It kind of sounds like they could give us information that could help us to improve.
There he is.
What does that have to do?
The master transition.
Maybe we're going to talk about
right
improving tonight.
There it is.
Today.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Man, Jared.
There you go. Boom.
That is it. So let's start with this first question. So why is it important for me to be improving on who I am? So why is it important? Well, for me personally, I'll tell you this little secret. I do not like the self-improvement section of a bookstore.
Tell us why.
I don't like it because I don't believe that you can. It's the self-help section is what it's called. And I'm a big believer that you can't do it by yourself. If you really want to have effective growth and improvement, you can't do it all alone. So I don't like the do-it-yourself kind of help section. I would prefer to have counsel. The Bible talks about there is wisdom in having counsel, not necessarily a counselor, but having other people who can speak into your life. So I think it would be better if it was a spiritual growth and development section or a Jesus help section. But of course, I'm also a Christian and therefore I'm biased. But I don't like self-help. But I think it is important for you to improve on who you are. And I think that we should constantly be doing that. But what's your take on that, Troy?
Well, I agree. I agree that in this idea of self-improvement, quote unquote, that it just in itself, if you go to a book, you're relying on someone else. So it's going to be this iron sharpening iron thing. So it's not totally up upon you to do these things. You have to have people that can uh, politely and gently, in most cases, point out some of your flaws. And I mean, you don't want someone that's just going to be all up in your mess and pooping in your post toasties and telling you that you're just a horrible person. But you do want someone that's going to go, hey, let's go to the next level. Let's step it up. Let's move past, what Paul says, when I was a child, I did childish things. And when I'm an adult, I do adult things. So there's a growth that we need to pursue in our walk as Christians, or just in, general. You can't just have the mindset of, well, I'm just content. I'm just content. I'm going to stay right here. I'm just content. And a lot of people will throw that scripture out where Paul says, I had a lot and I had a little, and all these things, just be content. Well, the actual premise of that scripture is be content in knowing that you're in a process. You're in a growth process. It doesn't mean to stay there. It means things are going to change, and you have to always turn back to God for that help to become closer or go up the mountain with him like Moses did. So I agree with you. It is not one of these deals where it can be done with books. And for all the people that are listening to me, I'm pointing to the books behind me. It can't be done by yourself. You have to find a group of people that can kind of work you over a little bit, and gently and politely, but it would be more like maybe a spotter when you're doing bench press, someone that can help you when you get stuck. They can help you push that up. So that's my opinion on it. How about you, J Rod?
So there was this guy who was pretty wise, and he was brought in to speak, and this person was going to be driving him around. They were super excited to get to drive this individual around because of the wealth of information and the admiration that they had for this person. So they're driving this person around and driving around, and notice that he really wasn't saying anything. And the person who had the pleasure of driving around finally said, hey, I've been looking forward to this opportunity to spend some time with you, but you really haven't said much. You've just asked me a few questions about myself, and I found myself doing most of the talking, but I really wanted you to talk. I mean, why don't you just share with people when you're in a car with them and things like that? And the gentleman spoke back to him and said, well, I already know what I know. And I thought, wow, that's kind of profound. So the guy that was full of wisdom, the guy that the person admired, already knew what he knew. And he realized that if he wanted to grow and develop, he needed to find out what other people knew. Right. So
That's good.
He recognized that he needed other people. And, you're walking through a bookstore and you look over at the different labels and to direct you where to go. And you see that self-help, right? And I think that's what, Matt, you were alluding to is, can you really have that self-help? Maybe it should just be called help, the help section,
Yep.
because if you can do it on your own, then the only thing that should be in the self-help book section should be books that you wrote.
That's right.
Because you're just reading the stuff that you already know. And what you already know has gotten you to where you are today. So what's the point?
Right.
You're just kind of reviewing it. It's like a scrapbook, right? So in other words, what we're kind of getting at is this: life is difficult. Do you really want to do it on your own?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, people, think about it. I know I don't want to do life without these guys in my life, you guys. And I'm kind of tearing up a little bit, Troy and Matt, because you guys are my friends and stuff. But I really do enjoy doing life with you. And here's what I found. I found that when we're together, we're better. The old saying, we're better together. I looked up the definition of improve, and it says to make or become better, achieve or produce something better than. And it's like, yeah. I mean, I think anyone who's listening to us right now, if they really, kind of examine themselves, they would say, I want to be better. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better mom. I want to be a better human being. I want to be better. So therefore, they're already admitting, I'm admitting, you're admitting, I want to improve. So we need each other. I've noticed this. Every one of the books in the self-help section, every one of them was written by someone other than me.
That's right.
So I figure, hey, I might be able to glean some information from these other people. And sometimes you get some good stuff, sometimes you get stuff that's not quite so good.
Yep.
And you just figure out what you need and leave the rest. As a wise farmer said, you eat the hay and spit out the sticks. It's just what you do.
Yeah.
Last
time I ate hay, that's what I did.
Yeah, you were talking about some, after effects of cow stuff, when you were talking about, Troy always seems to bring up, poop. And for those of you who don't know, he lives in the country, I believe. And in the country, when there's animals,
yes,
you got that. And you walk around and all of a sudden you got some of it on your shoe. And that's why it's always fresh on Troy's mind.
Absolutely.
Is because there's animals around his place
all the time.
They poop. So for those of you who are wondering what's his infatuation, it's not an addiction. It's not a strange addiction. He just lives around it. Okay. So that's why it gets brought up every once in a while. But you know what? We're trying to improve our vernacular here. So he's working on it. We're going to give him a book of,
I will get better.
Different adjectives. And we're going to try to de-poopify Troy and some of his comments because we all want to improve.
That's right.
That's
Like
true.
Matt,
That's exactly right.
That's true. And the thing is, I mean, we're not, of course, coming straight after Troy, but I will say this, because Troy, if you aren't growing, then there's only one other option. When you look at science, in science, you know that there's kinetic energy and there's potential energy. And if you didn't, well, you know it now.
Yep.
Kinetic energy means the movement, the motion. So you actually see something moving. It's using a kinetic energy. But potential energy, you don't see. Every single thing in existence has potential energy at some point. And that potential energy is always increasing or decreasing. Never, ever does it remain stagnant.
Yep.
There's no such thing as being stagnant. So if you are, say that you're sitting in a group of people around you, and you're looking around and you can point out all these people are improving on their life, and you're trying to figure out, someone in here is probably not growing. And if you don't see how, the fingers run out after a while, you start pointing to everyone else, you can figure out you may be the one that's not growing, especially if you think that you're just stagnant, because there's no such thing as sitting still. So you have to constantly be moving forward or backwards. Now, here's the scenario or the analogy that I usually use with that. In our life, it's almost like we're taking a car and we're trying to roll it uphill. Now, however steep the incline, we can go through this. That all depends on your strength and your ability. But the point is, when you start pushing that car up the hill, you gain momentum. That momentum in growth is good. But if you ever slowed down or stopped, then there's only one other way to go. You cannot sit and hold the car. Or even worse, what if something major happened in your life and it started the car going backwards? It doesn't take a lot really to push it backwards, but it takes a huge effort in your part to catch the car and get it moving the other way again. So when you have that momentum of growth in your life, it helps you. If you stop paying attention and you look up all of a sudden, you see the cars rolling back towards you, it's going to take a serious, massive amount of energy and effort to get going again that other direction. Yep. So it is important that we improve, and it's important that we don't just kind of let it happen, but we're intentional about it. Do it on purpose. And that kind of takes us to this next thing. So whenever we're talking about growing, we're talking about, pushing that car up the hill, getting that momentum. Eventually we know we'll hit that point where we hit the peak and it starts, going down the other side. We call that, I think, probably around the age of 60. Every time I get older, that time moves further and further away. It was 40 at one point, but then I hit it and it said, please, I'm still pushing uphill.
That's right.
But anyways,
got plenty of time.
Yeah, I got plenty of time. But the thing is, there's things that happen in our life that also affect us pushing that car. There's things around us. Mm-hmm. There's people in our lives. There are people in our lives who have an effect. Just to give it use the same analogy, but another example. Have you ever tried to push a car? Troy, I'm sure this has happened to you, where you're trying to help someone push a car, and then the person, we'll just call them person so we don't say anything mean, who's sitting behind the wheel steering, for some ridiculous reason, steps on the brake.
Tap on the brakes.
Yep. And you say, you're pushing, you say, whatever you do, don't push the brake. And they go, what? Push the brake? No, don't push the brake.
Right.
But that's a person in your life who would hit that brake and it would stop your momentum.
Yep.
We have people like that. It's our environment around us, and the people in our lives can help us push the car, or they can act as a force against the car.
Yep. That's right.
So,
Jared, so Troy, let me ask you this. So how important is it then, to kind of, analyze your surroundings and where you're at? Like, for example, when you step out of your house, how important is for you to do a survey of the land so that you don't step in any of those landmines, right?
That's right.
I mean, the point is this. I mean, how important is it, guys, for us to analyze our surroundings, our environments, including our relationships, the people that we're around? How important is that to us developing or improving as people? Yeah. I mean, does it have an effect? That's my question.
No, Troy. In my opinion, yes, it is huge.
Tell me more about that.
I will. And for me, I tend to be how do I put it? I don't want to say drama
genius.
No, not that. I'm very passionate about what I do. And like when I would play football or even watch football or my team and this stuff like that, I get passionate about it. I'll back them all the way. I mean, that's my team. And the where I'm trying to go with it is the things that come in through either your eye gate, your ear gate, whatever it is, your thought gate, they're going to have an effect on you. And so for me, when I would listen to, I'm a rocker guy. If I listened to something that was kind of heavy, Soundgarden or anything like that, where had a little depression to it or aggression of some sort, I could feel that song. I could feel myself going that way. And so the surroundings that you put yourself in, because it's your choice. Some of you are going to have to dig out of the poop that you're in.
There it is.
We got it.
Ding,
and
ding, ding, ding.
Yep, ding, ding, ding. But the fact of the matter is that anything that is surrounding you, it's going in you, and whatever goes in you, says out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth will speak, and then out of your actions, these things happen. And so a scripture that I was going to say a minute ago ties into it now, is Ecclesiastes, where it talks about the 3-braided strand of cord. And it can work both ways. Jared?
That's right.
He's
I'm
all-
listening. I'm
Okay,
listening. I'm just learning here, Master.
Okay. Yeah, the three braided cord. And it can work both ways. You can have, two other great guys like Matt and Jared that would push me to, become better. Well, that cord is going to be strong in my development in the positive. Well, it can work the opposite. If you've got people that, just suck the life out of you or find everything pessimistic and just, horrible and the world's going to end tomorrow and around every corner something bad, that's just going to reinforce your decay instead of the improvement. And so, in my opinion, your environment plays probably the biggest role in what you do. I mean, behind you making the decision yourself saying, hey, you know what? I'm tired of going around this circle. I have to take responsibility. I'm tired of going down this negative road. I'm going to take responsibility. Behind that is going to be your surroundings. And if if you're in a place where maybe you don't have a mentor or a pastor or someone, there's a lot of great books out there. They can be that outside influence that's going to help you move past the little mountain that you're dealing with.
That's great. That's great advice. I mean, I was just thinking about this just a moment ago. I heard it said before that you are the lump sum average of the 5 closest people to you.
Mm-hmm.
So the people you're spending the most time around, you become that average, of them. So,
That's
I mean,
good.
in whatever area it is, right? And I like how you mentioned that it could be a book, it could be a different area, because one of the things I've discovered as I've been walking with different people and hanging out with different people and doing life together, so to speak, is that if I find somebody who's strong in a particular area, you mentioned the word mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tend to go to that person with questions in that area because they're the ones that have achieved a certain level of success. They're better at it than I am. And I want to learn from them. It's kind of like the old saying, you wouldn't go to, what is her name? Liz Taylor, the lady that's been married like 600 times. You don't go to her to get marriage counseling, right?
Right.
Or somebody who's been divorced 15 times. Well,
Right.
how about the person that's been married for 50 years? I mean, that's kind of
Mhm.
like the goal, right? You want to
Mhm.
stay married. Go to someone who's actually doing it, they're
Yeah.
staying married, and ask maybe their advice. And it's just kind of, you don't go to a plumber with an electrical problem and vice versa, things like that. You go to the people where you're going to get good information, because the end goal is you want to get better. You want to improve. And in fact, in the Bible, in 2 Timothy 2 verse 15, it says, in various translations, but the gist of it is, study to show yourself approved, and that very term study means that you've got to actually put in the effort in order to improve. Well, if you're studying the wrong thing, you're going to end up doing the wrong thing. My friends who golf know this. You can practice a perfect slice over and over and over again. But if you don't change something to learn how to hit the ball straight, if that's your goal, you got to, change your grip, do something, change something. You're not going to get a better result. You've got to have a better practice, right? So, getting maybe just a little tip from somebody, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's from a book, that's highly encouraged, because let's face it, sometimes we don't have access to have a relationship with somebody who is, excelling in a certain area. We look around our 5 friends and go, wow, I'm in trouble, right? I'm spending most of my time with them. And one of the outlets, good news for you people that maybe you're in a small town, you got 7 people in your whole town. There's hope, because there's the internet, there's books, tapes, things like that. You can't podcast, living the WIT life,
living the WIT life.
That's right. And you can go there and get better. You can improve. So I'm glad you brought that point up.
That's so good. You're spot on with it.
I am.
Matt, what do you think?
Well, I know, with the lump sum average of the 5 closest people to you, when you look around and you say, just in one specific subject, let's say honesty, and you feel you're surrounding yourself with people who are just so happen to have a really good strength in that trait. So they're honest people. Well, that's great. Well, as honest as they are, you add up that total, divide it out. That's where you're going to be. That's what that means. Well, if you are at the bottom of the list, so you're the least honest of the group, yes, you're going to be pulling some of them down. But the whole thing is there's not only one way for you to go. It's up.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're the most honest in the group,
Oh.
well, you need to start looking at changing out some of those members.
Mm-hmm.
You start making some moves, and because you need to continually improve upon that group. Or like Jared said, whenever there's a specific trait that like you say, I wish that I were better at this, whatever it is. Well, then go find someone who you admire because that's a strength of theirs, and then either just ask them, hey, can we get coffee sometime? Just pick their brain. But here's another thought. When I was a coach years ago, anyone who's seeing a video, this might confuse you, but I was a sprinter in track. I was fast, whatever. Just don't look at my weight today and all that stuff. Forgiveness. God preaches forgiveness. It's a big deal. It's a podcast.
Looks are deceiving.
That's true. So even some of our other leaders would tell you that I could still get moving fast, but I can't stop. It'll take like 2 football fields for me to stop. But anyways, so I was a sprinter. Yeah. I went to state track. There's just things that I did. So when I became a coach, the athletic director at the school, I walked up to him and he said, what'd you do in track? And I said, well, I was a sprinter. I did, I was the anchor leg of the mile relay, the sprint, these are different terms now, but the 4x400, I was the anchor leg, and the 4x100, I was the anchor leg. And I also ran the 200 and went to state, and he laughed. He just laughed and he said, go over with the throwers. He just threw me over with the throwers. And I had no idea. I went to throw it. I went to the discus practice one time, decided I didn't like it, and actually went and tried out for the musical so I could do that instead of having to throw the discus. I did not like it, but he told me go over there, and I didn't argue with him. I just said, yes, sir. And I went, and I knew I've got now all these athletes who are looking at me as the expert. I have no clue how to throw the discus or the shot put. So that day I gave them some exercises and things to do. And then I went and I became a student first. And I went and watched videos, and I went and learned from someone else who's done it. And I watched and I kept digging in just for one day. I continued in my learning as we went through it. But the thing is, that year I was able to, I had one female athlete and one male athlete, both that went to state. The female in shot put and the male in discus. They outthrew me. I wouldn't even throw in front of them because, she'd probably even look at me and say, you throw like a girl. Well, she threw like an amazing athlete is what she did. But I had no clue. It didn't matter about my ability to do it. The ability that I had was in becoming a student first and then helping someone else to achieve what was in them. I could look at I could help them, coach them up on the small little moves, bring your elbow up here. And I could try to get creative at different ways to help draw it out of them. But both of them won state that year. Both of them won state. The next year, I think the second year I had 3 male athletes going to state and 2 female. By the time I'd done this a few years in a row, every one of my athletes were going to state. It had nothing to do, again, with me being an expert. Now, a lot of those people, one of the biggest things that I taught them wasn't about how to throw the shot put or the discus. I showed them how to be coachable, because I had to be that first. And then also how to train other people to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going to improve, it may not be that you have to find the best person in the entire world at a certain trait. Sometimes it's, you've been given that gift. God gave you a gift. Can you find someone who has the ability to help draw it out of you? That's
good.
big.
That's
So you
good.
can get a mentor,
Yep.
but you can also find a coach, and that's what a coach is. Sorry, that's enough of me.
Love it. It's awesome.
That's
So, we're
good.
good.
Yeah. I'm just
That's it.
echoing what Troy's saying. It's
We'll
awesome.
just drop the mic.
Wrap it
drop.
up. Wrap it up. Put a bow on it, people.
Just kidding.
We are done
So-
improving for the day.
Yeah.
Actually,
No.
that's a good point. You were talking about the whole thing about being teachable and being coachable, and really you're just kind of emphasizing again, the definition of improve, which is to make or become better, and achieve and
Mhm.
produce something better than. And that's just it. It's about knowing where to go to get the right information. I mean, I think that's huge. You literally went and sought out information on how to properly throw the shot put and the discus and the techniques so that you could share that information, and then they could apply it. And then in the application of that, they got better. Well, for us, as men, and specifically men of God, there is a great place that we can go to get right information so that we can become better as men, and
Mhm.
specifically men of God. And that place that we go is to the Word of God. And
Yep.
we refer to that often. So you're going to hear us quite frequently, no matter what topic we're talking about. Scripture from the book of life, will come out, the book that teaches us how to live life, the manual for living life. And we're going to go to that frequently. So you'll hear us from time to time just quote a scripture in the middle of just conversation about whatever it is. But my question is this. So we get the information, we start applying that information like your throwers did. And then at what point though, do you, I mean, how often should they look at, improving, once they got the technique down, Matt, when you were coaching these athletes, once they got the technique down, does it still take a little bit of time for them to get to their personal best? Because they could have perfect technique, but yet not put as much force into their throw and potentially not throw it as far as they could, to max out their potential. But how long do you focus on just improving technique and different things like that? And how long should you allow before you stop and just kind of reassess the situation as you're coaching them? I mean, how did you kind of navigate through that as you were teaching them this technique? Because I think it's important that we could actually learn something from you as a coach with little to no knowledge about something, going and getting information, sharing it with other people. They put it into practice, and now you're continuing to coach them along the way. And whether it's throwing a shot put or a discus, or teach them how to be a better dad, or how to love their spouse or raise a family, whatever it is, there's some techniques that we can use. But how often then, Matt, would you go and say, okay, we got to keep improving this technique and focusing on just improving? And then when does it come to the point where you stopped and went, okay, wait a minute, now we got to reassess here a little bit, and let's not be thinking about that anymore. You kind of got that down, and now we need to reassess things, and maybe you're at a different level. So now let's take it up to the next notch. I mean, how do you determine those things as a coach?
Well,
And I know, Troy, you coach people in business and you're an entrepreneur, so it can come to you as well. But specifically, Matt, go ahead, and Troy, feel free to chime in on those on that question as well.
Mhm.
yes. Well, I would tell you this. It depends. That's the best answer I could possibly give. It depends. It depends on what it is that you're trying to do. If you're doing something that's physical, or it's something that is something that's you need to do over and over and over again, but it's to produce either more strength or more speed or more something along those lines, then here's the way I would do it. And it would be different if I were talking about, I'll let Troy talk about business, but I mean, also having that, I'll give a little bit and then hand off to Troy. But here's what I would do with the athletes. I would tell them, because most of them, it's at the end of the day, especially when you're talking about track season. Oh, it's spring. It's getting close to summer. They're done. They're done. They were excited during football season because they got to stay till almost 6 p.m. They didn't want practice to be over because it meant conditioning. But they were like, come on, let's do this. They were ready. They were in their pads. They're out on the field. But when you got to track, they're like, oh, do we have to? Can we just skip today? Can we? Well, I'll tell you, the ones who had that attitude, they didn't go with me to state.
That's right.
They didn't. But this is what did produce the winning. I would tell them I knew they didn't want to be there. And so I took that to my advantage. I said, okay, we're only going to practice as long as it takes for you to produce for me one sporadic or wild throw. So we knew what their normal was. We knew because we'd have it marked, which, by the way, that's one of the keys. We had what their normal or their most recent success consistency is, and we had it marked. And we'd have a flag that I'd have sitting out there to whoever it is, and each person had a flag, and they knew where theirs was, and they knew where they stood compared to everyone else around them, but also they knew where they were. And so they all had to go through the normal warm-ups because I don't want any injuries. And then they got to do this. One wild throw, and it's sporadic. It's a wild throw past your consistent mark. And then 3 more throws and you can go home. That's it. So every time they stepped up, the very first, once they're warm, they're good. They take the very first throw and they're giving it everything they have just to beat their mark. And then they don't do it. They don't do it.
Oh.
So then now they're taking their second throw. I mean, they're trying every single time to set a personal record.
Wow.
And while they're doing it, I'm looking at their technique. And while they're doing it, I'm coaching them up on little things. When you did that, you moved your foot. It wasn't quite pointed directly at your target. You need to lead with your hips. Make sure you engage your core, whatever it is, get your elbow up, press through, whatever the coaching points that I could give them, I would do. But that's all I'm doing. I'm just giving them small little tweaks to mentally prepare them. Now think of this. When it comes time for them to go to a track meet, they get 3 throws. They do their normal warm-up. They get 3 throws for the prelims. The top 6 go to finals. Finals will be later. You get to do a warm-up. You get 3 throws. So you don't get, let me throw 15 times and see if I can beat your 15 times. You get 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm teaching them as they're practicing to have that real track meet like mentality.
Yeah.
Yep.
My first throw has to be my best throw. If it's not, my second one will. And if it's not, my third one for sure, because they just want to go home. That's all they want. They want to go get some pizza, play some video games, do their math homework, and go to bed. They don't want to be there. So they literally, and I'd have some, not everyone does it on a day, but I may have one athlete who walks out on one specific day and throws their very first throw, a completely wild, 2 feet past where they were. Like, oh my goodness, I don't mark it. Don't mark it. You measure it, you let them know. Let's say that they'd thrown, 52 feet. And you go out there and you say, you just threw 54 feet. Oh, no, that's actually extremely out of the ordinary. Let me go here. 35 feet. So they're throwing 35 feet. And then you're like, oh my goodness, you just threw 37. Wow, that's amazing. Give me 3 more throws and you can go home.
Yeah.
You know where their next throw is going to be? Probably 35 and a half.
Mhm.
They move their mark every time they get that sporadic.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time. So taking that mentality for me into life, you have to measure. You have to set goals and you have to measure where you are. You have to give yourself something that's attainable. And then you put everything that you have into it. Now, one of the things, even though you want to quit, you give yourself a minimum and say, I've got to at least do this. Then I get the opportunity to be done. And make it work. Don't just say, as long as I do 1 page of reading today, that'll be plenty and I'll go home. No, give yourself a challenge. Do something, whatever it is that you're doing. I mean, it's so hard for me not to go into business here. I'm gonna allow that to be Troy, but still, you have to make it measurable. You have to give yourself steps to succeed and have something to celebrate. But the whole thing is never quit improving.
Yep.
Once you reach a point that you're having trouble, you can't in one day say, I didn't even throw a best today. Because there were days that I had athletes that were there for about an hour, hour and a half, and I'd say, that's enough. In my mind, I had a limit to how many throws I was going to have them do because of safety. And there are times that I didn't get a sporadic out of them. Now, a lot of times those weren't the ones that were the competitive ones that got to state. But still, I was the one who set the limitations as to when we were done, not them. But kind of distracted myself with that. I'm good at that. But anyways, you have to have that measure and something to keep working at. Oh, the reassessing. This is what it was. Sorry. So if you've done that consecutive days in a row that you have not outperformed or pushed your mark, then not after 1 day, maybe not even after 1 week. It might be a couple weeks in a row when you're talking about athletics that we've pushed, we've tried. Let's take a step back and look and see what we're doing wrong. But in life, I would say a month, maybe 6 weeks. There are some goals that I personally have, financial goals for business, that are a quarter. They are quarterly. So that's 3 months that I'm going to stick with the plan. And then after the 3 months, then I reassess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I set the goals for the next quarter. But I don't do it and say after 2 or 3 days, well, that didn't work, and just move on. You're never going to find success. You're never going to be in the winner's circle. So
Yeah.
I hope I didn't say too much in there with business, but that's what I would do with athletes, and it translates very well into many other places of development. But Troy, what do you got to add to it?
No, I mean, that was like, home run or grand slam. You
Yeah.
literally touched on everything that I was probably going to bring up. The idea of how often should we do this? Every day. Every day. It's for some of you are like, oh, dude, this is like a big, huge elephant. Well, the old saying is, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. So you just do it every day. And however big that has to be for you, if it's just, baby steps of maybe reading 2 or 3 pages or memorizing, 2 scriptures, just every day, get that movement in the right direction. Going back to momentum. If you ever stop, then it's harder to get that thing going again. And so it needs to be something that's daily. How big, that's on you. You'll be able to assess, and the group of people that you seek out will be able to assess what needs to be done in your life. How long should you allow these new changes to take effect in your life before reassessing? That is it's a very personal question, and it's a loaded question, because a lot of times when you're doing these things, you're in that practice mode and you feel like, I suck. I'm sucking at this. This is so stinking hard.
Yeah.
I'm not. And then you got these little bitty increment movements that are moving forward, but you don't, in the day to day, you don't ever see those things. And so it does need to be a I don't know, benchmark type of progress where you can go, okay, here's my, this is what we did, so many phone calls, or this is, the amount of impressions that we made in marketing, or this or whatever. And you got to have those set up so you can run through the analytics. But it needs to be something where you don't get discouraged even when it's in small movements. And say in marketing, you want to run an ad or whatever, you're going to want to run that ad, let's say 6 weeks. After that 6 weeks and it didn't produce the goal that you want, you don't trash the whole thing. You go back and go, okay, what were some of the things that caused these things to not work out exactly? If you're trying to get fourth quarter production in first quarter, it's not going to be the same. People are motivated differently in business. And so you really have to analyze everything that goes into your progression as a person, as a business, as a Christian, as a husband, whatever the case may be. You have to, one, have a group of people that can, some sort of educated way of talking about these things, bounce it off of them so that you can have an outside view, but also know that it's not going to be one of these deals where it's just like you turn the switch on and then all of a sudden you're better, and those changes that you're shooting for happen. And so I don't know that there is a blanket statement. I do know that if you stop, it's harder to get going. And for everyone, you have to have it has to be on your mind constantly on, okay, am I improving today from what I did yesterday? And then do a big picture. Okay, did this meet the goal? If it didn't, okay, what caused us not to meet that? And so I can't give you a hard number. And a lot of times that's what the Bible is not hard numbers. It's a personal relationship. It's personally upon you. As long as you go, yep, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to change. I'm going to do improvements. I'm going to improve myself. And then you take those small steps. When you look back 5 years from now, you won't even recognize yourself.
That's good. And I love how, we've been talking today on living the WIT life. We've been talking about improving, and, we've talked about different sports analogies and application. We've talked about applying the business aspect of improving and self-improvement. We've covered a whole gamut of information, and a lot of the things that we talked about have very noticeable, measurable targets that we can be working towards. But when we're talking about walking in truth, as in Walking in Truth Ministries, a lot of the things that we're doing are involving a heart issue and a heart condition. And a lot of times we can't see the condition of someone's heart. But the good news is we've got the ultimate coach, the ultimate mentor, the one who is able to go before us and has the master of everything, right? I mean, he's good in every area. That's Almighty God. And we can go to him as we pursue truth and walk in truth. And it's about just getting better every day, guys, just a little bit better, a little bit better each and every day. It's developing that relationship. So if you're out there today and you're listening to this podcast and you've been with us for a while, you know that, hey, we're not perfect. We need one another. I need Troy. I need Matt. But most importantly, I need God guiding me throughout my life in the areas where I need someone to give me sound counsel. And I've always found it in him. So there's good news. If you don't have the 5 friends, make sure you have the most important friend, and that is God himself. And he's given himself to us and open up that relationship to us through his son, Jesus Christ. And I just encourage you to walk with him, pursue him. And I've loved spending this time with you and spending the time with my friends, Matt and Troy. And I just want to encourage you to continue to live the WIT life, and we are going to see you as we continue to improve. Remember to give us comments, give us suggestions, because we really do want to hear from you so that we can improve. God bless you, and we'll see you next week.